Hello judges, my name is Tongai Gitao and I was from Pink Tower. Our project is how to stop an acid rain.
Hello judges, my name is Leshan Montet. For this experiment, we'll use chalk, vinegar, water, cups and a bowl to show how acid rain affects the environment.
Hello judges, my name is Kayla Kimani. In this bowl we put water and in this bowl we put vinegar. We put in each bowl chalk. As you can see, this chalk is breaking because of acid rain. Acid rain is a bad gas. Thank you.
Hi judges, my name is Kayla Wasuna and we concluded that we can stop acid rain by not polluting the air. On behalf of the climate changers, I hope you enjoy watching our project. Thank you.
Little Einsteins East Africa brings you a digital science fair, STEM solutions for a better world, featuring 25 teams, 140 children, and 7 premier judges, the amazing Little Einsteins Explorer trainers, and a few surprises. August 3rd to August 7th on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Children innovating for climate resilience and responsiveness.
COVID-19 has changed the world. But despite the challenges we face, the spirit of Africanacity is still alive. It's in the tenacity of the men and women who are still keeping us safe and keeping us going. It's in the creativity you use to find new ways to work, teach, do it all, and stay together, even if you're apart. And it's in the ingenuity of all those who are making a difference. Thank you to everyone still getting things done. Your Africanacity inspires us.
All right. Good morning, everybody who's here with us today. My name is Mogore Jendu, and I'm a director of Little Einsteins East Africa. And it's really, really my pleasure and honor to welcome you to our closing webinar in this week's Science Fair. We have had an amazing week of projects and events. If you logged in early enough, you've just seen one of the projects that was submitted. We had 25 projects submitted, about 120 kids who participated in this year's science fair. I must say that it's a remarkable thing that they were safe at home and all of them were resilient enough and felt that this was an important topic for them to make submissions to, and worked together as a team to coordinate submitting their projects. So kudos to all the teams that participated, and we're very excited about this discussion. I think with no further ado, I want to introduce today's topic as well as today's speakers. Today, we're really talking about climate change and climate change education, why it's important to educate children on issues to do with climate change and hopefully inspire them into climate action as well. So I will introduce the two wonderful speakers we have here today. We have, firstly, I'll start with Dr. Samuel Partey. Dr. Samuel Partey is a program specialist in science, technology, and innovation at the UNESCO Regional Office for East Africa, based here in Nairobi. Before he joined UNESCO, he was the West Africa Regional Science Officer for the CGIAR Research Program on Climate Change, agriculture, and food security. His other professional experiences, including a lecturer at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana, a senior researcher at the International Bamboo and Rattan Organization, and he has had numerous roles. He holds a PhD in environmental biology from the University of Manchester and a PhD in agroforestry from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Ghana. His expertise is in science policy, climate change, agricultural development, and environmental systems analysis. As you can hear, ladies and gentlemen, kids, this gentleman has a lot of experience and he's going to be really talking to us about the subject. So welcome, Dr. Partey.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mugore, and I am very excited to be here today to talk to these youngsters, about climate change. These are the next generation, and so they have to really know about the subject area of climate change. Thanks so much for inviting UNESCO into this great and important program.
Thank you.
So, yes.
I want to introduce Kayla, then we'll have a short presentation from Dr. Partey. Kayla Kimani is a student at Nairobi International School, where she's a member of the Cancer Awareness Treatment Support Initiative. She's passionate about STEM as well as drawing and reading. She believes that we need to be deliberate about taking care of our planet so that we can enjoy it for the long term. She has been a part of the Little Einsteins family for a long time, and you may recognize her from our YouTube channel. She's our host for a number of our YouTube sessions. Kayla, karibu.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be part of this session.
Thank you, Kayla. So with no further ado, Dr. Partey, I'll hand over to you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Hello, viewers all over the world. You are welcome to this webinar on climate education. This is a very important subject for everybody, and it is something that is talked about all over the world. And it is very important that children also get to know about the subject area of climate change and why schools need to integrate climate change into their educational curricula. So I will just touch a little bit on how climate change is affecting us. It is something that has been happening over the past 200 years. And this is because human activities are emitting what we call greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide from various activities that we embark on. And this has resulted in accumulation of these greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, altering the Earth system and the atmosphere. You can see from the pictures that I've put on your left, different phases of what is happening all over the world. You can see in one end, you see a soil that looks very compact and cracked, which means that there is no rainfall in that area. You see a very cloudy weather, that shows that maybe there's going to be extreme, climate events, maybe flood from precipitation. And then you see from the other side, a grass and also a tree with leaves. That tells you that climate change is experienced differently depending on where you find yourself. And research has shown that dry places are going to continue to be dried, whilst the wetter places are going to continue to be wet. You can also see in the picture below, on one end that looks blue and beautiful, a very cool environment, and the other end you have very hot, environments, temperatures, and all these things are manifestations of climate change, and we see it happening all over the world, including Kenya. Now, it is said that if this kind of scenarios continue over the years, it is going to affect, for instance, the way we produce our food. And in the next 40 years, about 265 million people are likely to go hungry because of the issues of climate change. Now, because the weather is going to be very extreme, you are going to have so much flooding, you are going to have so much droughts and all that. People may not be able to live where they are. So what is going to happen is that about 150 million to 2 billion people are going to migrate. So they are just going to live wherever they are, to places where they can find comforts. And these are all because weather events, climate events are not going to be conducive for people to live. It is also said that climate change is going to affect human health. And research has shown that if our temperatures increase by 10 degrees Celsius, what is going to happen is that the number of bacteria, disease-causing bacteria that we have are going to increase. So that means that people are going to continue, to be sick. There will be a lot of diseases and, pandemics and all that affecting human life. And this really sets the scene of the importance of climate change and why governments, children, parents, policymakers, everybody needs to be very concerned about climate change and how we can deal with it. In the next slide, I'm going to show you a video from the United Nations Children Fund, where they talk about, why children should be concerned about climate change. And you see the different manifestations of climate change and how it is affecting people all over the world. Try to see the video. I don't know why the slides are not changing.
We'll also try on our end, I think, if that's okay.
Yeah, let me see again.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Please give us a minute, audience. We're just projecting the slides. Thank you.
I don't know what is going on. Okay. Okay, try it one more time. Do you see it now? Yes, so finally
Yes,
we have the video.
Thank you.
Good. Great. So that was a very short video to tell you, climate change manifestations all over the world and how it is affecting people. And you could see how flooding is displacing people, and how they have to leave their comfort zones, to find places of convenience, for shelter and all that. Now, there was a question that was posed at the end of the video, and it said that, can the next generation succeed where the elders have failed? And this is a very challenging question for you as children, whether you'll be able to correct the mistakes of the people that lived, 200 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, and still, living, but not adhering to the good practices that can help prevent the issues of climate change. Now, you must know that as a child, you have a role to play, when it comes to climate change. And that role is for you to learn from the mistakes of the elders and try to correct it. And this is why teachers and parents need to educate their children about climate change, talking about the science of climate change, the causes of climate change, and how climate change can be prevented. Now, in so many schools, UNESCO has a very unique program that I'm going to talk about shortly. And in so many schools, teachers have started, putting the certain behaviors in students. And one of them is, having a school garden where children are encouraged to plant trees. Children are also encouraged to conduct, some experiments, about lightning, why they need to put off the light when they wake up in the morning and all that, so that you'll be able to change the minds of these future generations about certain practices and why, they are very important for the environment. And one of the things that we need to understand is that a lot of adults are very skeptical. They don't want to buy into the idea of climate change because when they were kids, they didn't have this kind of education. They were never talked about climate change and how it would, really affect them. And that is why up till now, there are a lot of people that are still doing things that are not, very friendly to the environment. And so taking children, through climate education, it helps to change their behaviors and their thinking about their environment and about the planet, which is, in fact, our future and present home. So in UNESCO, we have the UNESCO Associated Schools Network. And one of the lessons that we can learn from this network of schools is that they sort of mainstream climate change into their education curriculum. And you can see from the picture, this is a picture of students in Tanzania, a school that is part of the UNESCO Associated Schools Network, where, in fact, on admission, every student is required to plant a tree. So, for instance, if you have 200, 500 students in your school, then it means that you would have planted, 500 trees. And this is really very important. And the good thing is that the students are supposed to nurture the seedlings, the trees that they have planted. So every morning when you go to school, you have to go and check whether you have to water your plants and all that. And you have to make sure that it grows and it becomes big. And I think this is a very good practice that can be adopted in schools. We also have the Youth UNESCO Climate Action Network. So this is a kind of a global youth forum where you have some selected youth that come together to talk about the issues of climate change and why the next generation should be very mindful of the effect of climate change, how it's going to affect their future, and how they can have a voice, when it comes to preventive measures of climate change. We also use what we call gamification or edutainment. One of the things that is really crucial, when it comes to educating children about climate change is when you use some of these, what do you call it, games and edutainment. So edutainment basically means that being entertained, but at the same time, you are being educated. And we have an app, for instance, we have the Eco Warriors app that is, talk about the environment, what children must watch out in the environment. They shouldn't put plastics anywhere and all that, And so these are some of the ways by which we can educate children about climate change. And UNESCO is really as part of the climate change education program, and also apart as part of the sector program that we have these educational programs also mainstream. We also have the Know Water app. The Know Water app is just talking about sustainable water use, why children shouldn't waste water. Because in so many homes, you have boreholes that are, powered by electricity. And so the more you waste it, the more you have to continue to pump, the water. And all these are not good for the environment. And this is what the app seeks to, educate children about how they can make good use of water. Now, what could be the role of you as a youngster? Maybe you think as a child, I can just sit on the fence. This is an issue that adults have to deal with. As a child, I can't be part of it. I must say that there are a lot of, youngsters that are really pushing the idea, of saving the planet. And in Kenya, there's an example that, all children in Kenya can learn from. This lady called Wanjiru Matuti, and she did something very fantastic, So for instance, she set up what we call the Green Generation Initiative back in 2016, as a way to get more young people interested in climate action and environmental health. And part of her organization's mission is greening schools in her country by planting trees. And to date, she's been able to, contribute to planting about 30,000 trees. And I think this is a very fantastic initiative that, children can learn of. She also started an environmental club in her high school. And I think this is a very good practice. Schools can have these kind of environmental clubs where children come together to learn about the issues of the environment, how it affects them, and the kind of practices they can also do in their schools. And I think this is something that all schools can adopt, and children are encouraged to back home. And I must say that it is an initiative that is also supported by the United Nations. For instance, on 27 July 2020, the United Nations Secretary General announced the names of 7 young climate leaders who will advise him regularly on accelerating global action and ambition to tackle the worsening climate crisis. So that means that children are becoming part of, decision making, advisory services when it comes to the issues of climate change. So I would like you to, really think through some of the things that we have discussed briefly, and see what you can do in your school. Will you be able to start an environmental club? Will you be able to initiate tree planting in your schools? And so that we can all, contribute in our various ways to fight the issues of climate change. On this note, I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Fati. I think you have given us so much to think about. And kids, really, I think that presentation is telling us that, that kids will be affected, and how can we act? I think it's a very good thing to know that it's not that we can't act to mitigate climate change, but we can, and it's exciting because we have seen some fantastic science fair projects that have come in addressing that. And I really liked that idea that you presented about schools, every child planting a tree. Perhaps that's the challenge we also need to give everyone who's in the audience today. Kids, if you've never planted a tree, find a place and plant a tree and nurture it. Your one act is going to make a huge, huge difference. So now I want to hand it over to Kayla. Kayla has a few questions that she'd like to ask Dr. Partey.
Yes, okay, so I'll start with the first question. How can we engage children in order to make climate change education more fun and impactful?
Thank you very much, Kayla, for the question. I think I mentioned bits and pieces of this in my presentation. I think one of the best ways to teach children is to use, for instance, games. I talked about, this app that we have in UNESCO that's, borders on the issue of environmental health and also climate change. So I think schools can adopt, using games. They can also be organize some environmental campaign, programs, that will coincide with, some of the world celebrations. So for instance, on the 22nd April of every year, the world celebrates the Earth Day. So this can be a day where the school, organize events, talk about, climate change, how it affects children, what children can do. There's also on the 5th June of every year, there's the Environmental Day, the World Environmental Day. So schools can also have, events. They can also use what we call the climate change cards. I don't know whether schools are very familiar with this, but basically what you do is like the way we have, the normal cards that we play. You have cards that talk about the causes of climate change, the one that talk about the prevention, the one that talk about how climate change affects us. And children are asked to, you mix the cards and you ask the children to arrange them based on the causes, the preventive measures and all that. And I think this is a way that you can really make, climate education really a fun, for kids. And, as you do that, they are able to pick the ideas. For instance, they will know about the causes, they will know about, how it affects people, they will know about how it can be prevented. Thank you.
Okay, the next question, you actually mentioned how the older generations, they're the ones who didn't get the climate change education when they were younger. Some adults, they're skeptical about climate change right now. How do you think we can educate them to stop this cycle?
Thank you very much. Yes, so I think the issue of climate change, we have to deal with it from the behavioral level, because what is creating the problem is the way people behave towards, climate change. And I think it always becomes very difficult for you to change somebody if the person finds, whatever he's doing very conducive. So for instance, we are discouraging the cutting down of trees, but you have people who are selling charcoal. They get money from selling charcoal, and the charcoal is produced from trees. And so if you say that we shouldn't cut trees, what it means is that you are going to prevent somebody from, getting his daily bread because he gets his money from, selling charcoal, and then it becomes then imperative for us to look at what opportunities that we can create, for these people, whilst climate change is, affecting us now. So for instance, could there be, let's say, a government, program that is promoting the selling of solar panels or something like that, so that instead of this person, just doing, charcoal, they can, go into selling these kind of things? Or could we have like community plantations, for instance? So if we have in a community, we are able to establish a plantation of trees, for instance, we can, these people can go in there and cut the tree instead of going to the natural forest. So this is one way by which we can do that. And then you see people fancy driving V8s because it's a very luxurious car, it uses a lot of fuel. And so if you say that we don't need to really encourage the use of fossil fuel. It means you are going to prevent people from, luxury. You understand? And so, in certain parts of the world, we see government coming out with policies where people have to, car manufacturers have to go into producing electric cars and all that. So I think it's a way of creating opportunities within the system. And I think if we do that, and we have very good policies, that back these things, it's possible that people are going to change their behaviors and they will adopt the best practices. Thank you.
Okay, some children, they don't think that they can do much to help with climate change, to be part of the solution. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think if you are a child of today and you are seeing the kind of things that are happening, for instance, in the video that I showed, where flooding is displacing people and all that, I think you have to start, thinking through, how you can be part of the solution, because in the next 50 or 60 years, you are going to be the future generation. All the people that you see today who are maybe 40 or 50, they will not be there. So you are going to inherit the planet. And so you don't want to inherit a planet that is not conducive, to live in. And that is why I think some of the practices that I mentioned should be really taught through by children. For instance, the issue of planting trees in your schools. You can also change the behavior of your parents. For instance, if Naivas is just close by and your father wants to drive his car, you just say, Daddy, can't you just walk to the place, or can you not use a bicycle, or those kind of things. If you see the lights on in broad daylight, you just go and switch them off. Or if you see your brothers, you go to their rooms and they are not putting off their lights. I think this is some of the ways by which you can contribute as a child. And so you have a role to play, and especially when children know it right and adults don't know it, I think it really can change the behavior of adults. And so you can be part of the solution. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. Clean energy is very valuable in helping with climate change issues. How do you think schools and educational institutions can affordably enforce clean energy techniques?
Thank you. Yeah, so the issue of clean energy in schools is, in fact, is very important now. And even in UNESCO, with the help of the Chinese government, we've gotten some money that we want to assist schools to have, solar panels so that they can power, their laboratories. They can use it to pump in water, and all that. And I think if we talk about the issue of affordability, I think it has to do with the producers of these clean energy systems, and then also whether there is any government intervention that can really promote schools for adopting it, because certainly it will come at some cost. And if schools are under-resourced, then what it means is that they cannot, they may like it, they will like the idea, but if the financial resources are not there, they will not be able to, have these kind of systems in their schools. So I think it's a matter of policymakers prioritizing, the use of clean energy in schools, mobilizing resources, and enforcing it. That is something that schools have to adopt. Thanks.
Okay, I think I have just one more question. What do you think the future of climate education in Africa looks like?
Well, I think more and more climate change is becoming very important, and it is something. For instance, in UNESCO, we have a climate change education program, and what we are trying to do is to promote the integration of climate change into the educational curricula of schools. And so I think with the way climate change is affecting us and the projections that the future is going to be worse, for especially for us, in developing countries where we don't have, the resources to be able to adapt very well to climate change. I think it becomes, some kind of a state of emergency for us, and that is why we think that for us to influence behavioral change, it has to start from the schools. So I think in future, it is something that all schools are going to, adopt. And I want to use this opportunity to encourage schools to join the UNESCO Associated Schools Network, where we are trying to promote certain values, in schools and also in children, encouraging, environmental, health, encouraging climate change prevention and all that. So I think the future of climate education is bright. It's something that all schools are going to, buy into, because that is where we can really cause that behavioral change in children, so that as they grow, like the Bible says, teach the child the way he should go, and when he grows, he will not depart from it. So I think we can use the school as, as avenues for creating this behavioral change. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Kayla. Those, I think, were really great questions from Dr. Partey, and really getting us to think about some of the questions that children have on this topic. Dr. Partey, we've also received a few questions in the chat, which I'd like to direct to you or Kayla, and I'll direct to you and Kayla, of course. If you want to make a comment, please feel free. There was a question from one young person who was asking whether climate change can make a habitat extinct. So Dr. Partey, that one is for you.
Thank you very much. Yes, in fact, climate change, because of the way it is changing, vegetation, it is changing the population of, living organisms and all that. There's so much likelihood that climate change can completely change the habitat of certain organisms. And you can see, even in Kenya, you see the evidence. I mean, when you go to Masai Mara, you see the migration of those animals. What is happening is that they are leaving because the condition of their natural home has changed. And that is why they move all the way to Tanzania. So what it means is that if throughout the year that condition prevails, they are not going to come back. In fact, the reason why they come back is because things change also in Tanzania, and they have to come back. And so if the environmental systems are not going to be the same as the animals know of it, then of course these issues of habitat destruction and habitat extension is going to happen. So I must say that yes, progressively this is something that is going to happen, and there are so many places where this is happening. I mean, we saw this year there was some wildfires in Australia, for instance. The whole forest got burned, so many animals died and all that. And so the authorities are trying to see how they can reproduce some of these animals again. And so these are some of the manifestations of climate change, and they can cause a total destruction of habitats and their extension. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to remind the participants, please, if you have any questions, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, just ask them in the chat or in the question and answer section, and we're happy to address those questions. We do have another question from Jasmine. Jasmine is 8 years old, and her question is, how can we share the importance of climate to the people who think it's not a big deal?
That's a
and this I'll also ask to Kayla. So to you, Dr. Partey, and then Kayla.
Thank you. Kayla, do you want to share some thoughts?
Yes, maybe just try explaining the basics of how climate change works, and maybe show them some examples of events that have occurred because of climate change issues. And then just take it slow, they'll understand eventually.
Excellent, excellent. That's really great. Yeah. So Jasmine, if you ask this question, I think Kayla's answer really provides, one of the ways by which we can, really tell the people who think it's not a big deal. We need to really give some examples. Like I showed a video of how the manifestation of climate change is causing problems all over the world. There are a lot of people, in fact, even very key policymakers who think that climate change is not a big deal. There are some religious people who think that it's something that is going to happen because it is said in the Bible or in the Quran that the world is going to change, things are going to get worse, and so they think it's a natural thing that has to happen and it cannot be linked to the behavior of people. And I think we need to use some examples to really support whatever arguments that we make.
Thank you very much, both Kayla and Dr. Partey. I just want to pick from one thing that you said, and we have had a bit continuously in the sessions we've had this week. On Monday, we had a session with Edward Mugai, who's the CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. And then on Wednesday, we had from Nuru Mugambi, who's really passionate about sustainable finance. And the two things they said, and also you have also mentioned, Dr. Partey, is about how important our behavior will be in terms of having an impact on climate change. So I just want to pick from that again about how important behavior is. If you were really just to encourage the kids and the parents, and I like what you said about the kids also telling the parents, but why are you doing this and why don't you do this other thing? My children also do that to me as well. Just how important do you think behavior is? And maybe Kayla, I'll start with you and I'll ask you a bit of a different question. Do you think that we can change kids' behaviors where it comes to doing small things to be able to impact the environment and sustainability? And then Dr. Partey, the same question about behavior.
Okay, so in order to get children to have more sustainable behaviors and create habits that are good for the environment, as I said, even with convincing people, you always have to start with small things they can do, like turning off the light or using less water, not wasting it. You see, things like that. You start with small things and then you add, and then you get results.
Great, thank you, Kayla. Dr. Partey, the same question?
Yes, thank you very much. I think as parents, sometimes we tend to give some rules to our children. So for instance, if you tell your child that when you wake up in the morning, switch off the light. If you see plastics in places where there's actually, sorting of trash. For instance, children know that they have to put, let's say, a plastic in a blue basket or, that kind of thing. When you give this kind of rules for children and you enforce it, they will obey. But at the same time, they want to see you doing it. And so I think if you are a parent and you want your children to change, their behaviors about certain things, like we're talking about sustainable, climate change practices, your child will want to see you doing the same. And I think if you become a good example for your child, then for sure, he's going to do whatever you also do. So I think it's starts from the parents. You doing things, the child will say, oh, daddy doesn't do this, so we need to, so if daddy says we should do this, she will also going to do it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Partey. Kayla, also, I have another question for you because we're talking about matters education. As a young girl in school, do you feel this matter of teaching about climate change in order to inspire children to take action? Do you think it is best taught, very theoretically about on the books, or we need to focus on showing, being practical about things. Just as a student, what are your thoughts around how we can educate on this topic?
I feel like if you're more proactive with it, like if you're practically showing and like doing activities that are related to climate change, you can actually inspire people more, because then they will really understand it more in depth, as opposed to if you're just learning from a book, then it's like, oh, it's just a theory, like it's not real. If they see it, if they actually practice different activities, different experiments, it will be easier for them to understand and to get inspired to do something about it.
Right.
Great, thank you so much for that question, for that answering that question, Kayla. Dr. Partey, I also want to take that to you. I like when you talked about edutainment, because that is actually how we teach as Little Einsteins. Our philosophy is basically that teaching is easier when it's fun for kids, because if you keep them engaged and they're able to be inquisitive, then it ends up being a positive experience. So I just want to pick up on that question from Kayla in terms of the programs that UNESCO has been rolling out in the curricula, in education curricula, how important you feel the practical is versus the theoretical learning.
Thank you very much. I think the issue of the practice is very important. So for instance, if you use edutainment systems, you develop an app that talks about, practices. Maybe there are some questions and answers. Is it good to cut down a tree? You say no, yes, and all those kind of things. It has to also go with some practicalities, and that is why we also encourage schools to have, like, a garden, for instance, where you demonstrate to children, how they have to even plant trees, how plastics, affect the environment. So for instance, if you put plastic in the soil for 1 week or 1 month, you still see it there. So it becomes, like a pollutant, for the soil. And so these are some of the things that you can take children through. So it's not just about, staying in the classroom and teaching them. You can also have some science fairs like you are doing at the moment. It could be an opportunity for children to visit, certain areas. There can be some, I don't know whether in Kenya, for instance, there's a green building, because in some countries, there are some buildings that are called green buildings. Everything is, the power systems are based on renewable. Children can go there and see, the solar panels on this, on the roof, and how the entire building is getting its electricity from that. Children can also visit places where there are wind turbines, for instance, for electricity generation. So I think it's more of also exposing them to some of the practices that are happening, outside. And I think this can really complement, the theoretical things that happen in the classroom. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'll also pick two questions that have come in from the people who are watching on Facebook. We have about 200 people who have been watching us on Facebook as well.
Wow, that's great.
So there's a question from a lady called Naila, who's, I believe she must live in Mombasa. She's asking about the risk to people who are living on islands and whether government should consider moving them in terms of this crisis becoming closer, or maybe even just how somebody who's living on an island can prepare or mitigate for any climate crisis. Dr. Partey.
Yes, thank you very much. In fact, there's been a lot of studies on sea level rise. There are some projections that people who live in low-lying coastal environments, they are at risk of climate change, because the windstorms that happen on the seas. We have seen in places like Haiti, there were some very serious tsunamis and earthquakes, combined happening over there. We have seen a lot of islands, or what we call the small island developing states, having these issues of sea level rise affecting them. And one of the mitigation measures, have been based on, for instance, constructing buildings that are very resistant to windstorms, and all that. And then they've also been the construction of ocean, what do you call it? You create some kind of a barrier, around the oceans, so that when the winds come, they just hit the barrier and they don't get into the community. But this does not really rule out the risks that are there. And I think the severity will really test some of these practices over time. And it will be very difficult for you to say that you are going to evacuate people living on the islands. And that is why every country is also encouraged to have what you call an early warning system. You see, so if you have an early warning system, they will be able to tell that maybe in the next 3 months or something like that, there's going to be a very huge windstorm or tsunami. They will be able to tell the kind of damages it's going to cause, and then people will be evacuated. And we see that in the United States, in Florida, some of the coastal areas in Florida, for instance, sometimes they are able to project that there's going to be a tsunami, there's going to be a hurricane, and the government put interventions, give people temporary, shelters and all that. And I think if there's an early warning system, it could be one of the ways by which you can really reduce the risks associated with that.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to get some sort of parting thoughts from both of you. The questions do still keep coming in, but we'll try and collect them and respond where we can. But I'll start with you, Dr. Partey. In terms of a parting shot, what would you tell the children who are here today in terms of climate education, or how they can impact this very important conversation we're having?
Thank you. I think I'll really want to re-echo the issue of children learning certain behaviors. For instance, the issue of alerting your parents, about short distance movement, why they shouldn't use their vehicles. You talk about water usage at home, putting off the lights when it is not necessary. Also, encouraging your parents to have like a garden. You go to some and houses. I think in Nairobi is pretty good. A lot of houses have trees and stuff like that. But if you don't have it at your home, this is one way by which you can encourage your parents to have a small garden where you can plant a tree. It could be a challenge for you. And also in the schools, for instance, you can also push for your school having an environmental club, or some of the practices that we have in the UNESCO associated networks, like you mentioned, every child planting a tree when they are admitted, and it's very exciting for children to see that they planted something that is growing. I mean, when we were kids, we used to plant tomatoes at the gardens, and we see the tomato growing, then you are excited that you have done something. And I think these are some of the things that children can start, cultivating these behaviors, and in their own small way also contributing to the prevention of climate change. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I think you really left us with the thought about our habits and our behaviors, and then also not just ourselves, but also those people who are around us, kids, your parents, your siblings. We need to, as much as possible, support and inspire each other to make the difference that each individual can make, and then collectively, we're going to make a very big impact. Kayla, over to you, just in terms of what you want to leave as a message to the kids, the parents, all the people who are watching on this particular topic.
Okay, so I would just want to say that you should try to make your own impact on helping with climate change, spread information, plant a tree, just do whatever you can and be part of the solution.
Great, Kayla. I like that. Be part of the solution, because I think it's also important not just to be identifying problems, but figuring out how to fix them, which is actually what this science fair was all about, STEM solutions for a better world. So thank you for saying solutions, because I think that's really, really important. And kids, you guys are really going to be the ones who get things together and get things right. You're the ones who are creative, are thinking, innovating. You're the ones who can actually provide the solutions for the world. I think because we're talking about climate education also, maybe just to mention that as Dr. Partey was giving his presentation about edutainment and the sort of different ways to teach about climate, is that these books, they're also really good TV shows for kids that you can access in terms of learning about climate. UNESCO has some really great materials, curricular materials, which we shall share a link to on our social media pages today for anybody who's interested. We'll also share a link, I think, to what Dr. Partey has mentioned with regards to the Associated Schools Network, because we do have a lot of partner schools as well. As Little Einsteins, we're also developing a climate education program, and we hope to be working closely with UNESCO on that. And I also do want to mention this week we did launch a really, really great book, and I'll just show it to you guys over here on the screen. We launched A Rainy Sunset, which actually talks about climate, guys. It highlights different climate issues. And if you have a chance to check out this book, it's done by the kids who have been in our program. The teacher is actually Miss Wamboi. And for anybody who knows Miss Wamboi, we call her Social Science. And I'm excited to invite Social Science to join us in this conversation. Wamboi, are you there? Okay, you can see she's not a shosho, right? She's definitely not a shosho, but we like to call her Shosho Science. The kids love to call her that. Wamboi, I'm very excited about your book. I'm very excited about how you teach the kids, and I'm happy to hand over to
you. Thank you so much, Mugore. Thank you, Dr. Partey and Kayla. That was a very good presentation. I've learned a lot. In fact, I love the emphasis on creating habits, on just starting small and being consistent and building up on that. And I think the kids who are here, the parents who are here, those are very practical, what can I call them, skills that we've been given so that we can combat climate change. So asante sana. So yeah, without further ado, as you might have seen before you joined the webinar, today was the day that we're also going to unveil our overall winners. And I am so excited. And I know you're also waiting to see who that person is. So where you are, just do the drum roll on the table with me. I'll do it for you, but also do it from your end. And yes, so let us see who is the overall winner of the Little Einsteins 2020 Science Fair.
As signatories to the Principles for Responsible Banking, we at Absa Bank Kenya are committed to using our products, services, and relationships to support and accelerate fundamental changes in our economies and lifestyles in order to achieve shared prosperity for both current and future generations. We have now come to the end of the Little Einstein Science Fair Week, themed Solutions for a Better World, Children Innovating for Climate Resilience and Responsiveness. At a time when the world is discussing the blue economy, this particular project, which seeks to rid water bodies of microplastics, is very relevant and its execution excellent. It is for this reason that Absa Bank Kenya proudly presents the Little Einstein Science Fair 2020 Overall Winner Award to the Green Movement. The Green Movement members will each receive an Absa Junior account loaded with 5,000 Kenya shillings, as well as gift packs courtesy of the Absa Junior account. Congratulations to the Green Movement.
Thank you, Little Einsteins, for this award. I couldn't have done it without my fellow team members, Kirav Movalia, Kirutish Varan, Viran Kumar, and Simrit. We learnt a lot, and we are looking forward to the next Science Fair in 2021. Thank you. We are happy to have been the overall winners again. We would like to thank our teacher, Miss Flora, We would like to thank Premier Academy for bringing Little Einsteins into the school. I say that because Little Einstein helps us with our science. It helps us with our science because if you're not good in the school science which they teach, you can come here and they can help you with more experiments which you can also learn. We're looking forward to taking part in the next science fair. Hopefully we shall win it for the third time in a row.
This was a unique opportunity for me to impact the lives of very young, talented Kenyans. Their determination to solve our day-to-day challenges is amazing. I'm so humbled to have been part of a great team of judges in this year's science fair. Microplastics find their way in our waterways and are virtually impossible to remove through filtration. Sadly, this poses a threat to the marine life, which eventually end up on our plates. This team has developed a great extraction idea using readily available materials and which could be introduced in wastewater treatment facilities. The team was noted to be outstanding in a scalable idea that is cost-effective and environmental friendly. It is important to note that this project deals with symptoms, but the root cause must be addressed by me and you. Use of less plastics and recycling before they reach our wastewater. We appreciated the way each team member presented their contribution to the project with a lot of confidence and demonstrated great team spirit. All the teams are for sure rising stars in the world of science and technology, and we cannot wait to see their next projects.
Yay, congratulations, the Green Movement. Let's clap for them where you are. Yes, and if you participated and you didn't become an overall winner, just know that you are still a winner. The fact that you sat down, you thought about a project and you did it, that means your capacity to do things is more than you understand. So I also want to congratulate all the participants, and of course, congratulations to the 2020 Science Fair winners. And I know we have a representative here. So the representative from Green Movement, if you could just switch on your video and I can give you a minute.
Hello, I am Kirutish Varan from the Green Movement, and I have really enjoyed being part of this team, the Green Movement. I can't believe we won the science fair the second time in a row. And I was really looking forward for it to be like non-virtual, but sadly, the day that I was so excited to go back to Aga Khan High School, it's actually said that it was cancelled. At first, I thought my dad was joking with me so that he could actually get me excited once we go back, but turns out he wasn't faking. But at least we got to do our experiments, and at least we got some awards. And I really am looking forward to more Little Einsteins. I hope they add more lessons to our school Premier Academy. And I was just about to send a mail to our CEO, Mr. Banerjee, about the climate change to implement the new subject that all of you are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Varan. See, Varan is already taking action. He's writing to the big boss, Premier Academy, so that at least we can also see how Premier as a school can actually take action. Thank you so much, Varan. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's webinar. Thank you for coming to all the webinars that we've had over the week. We started on Monday with Edward Mungai, and on Wednesday with Nuru Mugambi, and of course today with Samuel Partey and Kayla Kimani. So we really, really appreciate you, and we hope we'll see you next year. We might do it virtually, it might be non-virtual, but then we don't know. But we've known that we can do it either way. I think that's what's important, to know that we can do it regardless. So good job, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to the webinar today. and see you next year. Kwaheri.
We would like to send our gratitude to everyone who has been involved in making the Little Einsteins Virtual Science Fair 2020 a success. First, to the children who participated in the science fair, thank you for submitting your projects and for being so flexible even as we moved online. To the parents who rehearsed with the kids and recorded their presentations, we really appreciate you. Our judges who helped us adjudicate all the projects, we are very grateful for the time and effort put in this process. To our panelists this week who have been engaging and educating us on children and climate change, we have learned so much from you. Asanteni sana. Our sponsors, Absa Bank Kenya, Safaricom PLC, Kenya Climate Innovation Center, Santop, Unilever, and Kilimani Project Foundation, thank you for the material, knowledge, and financial support that you have provided to the 2020 Virtual Science Fair. Our trainers who have been working tirelessly in coordinating all the groups, you guys are really the best. And to our directors who founded the company, thank you for creating a space where we can not only learn, but have fun with STEM. And finally, to you who has been watching and participating on our various online forums, we hope you have learned and have been inspired to take action to create solutions for a better world. See you next year during the Little Einstein Science Fair 2021.
She said until they moved back and then Miss Wambui came, then it exploded on you. Mary, please give Kazi a piece of paper to draw on. Yeah. Sembi, you were only 3 years old when you did your first experiment. Do you remember what that was like? And there was a funny song you were singing. And touching your belly and your head. Maybe Miss Wambui can remind us that song.
Why are we laughing?
Okay, good energy. That is why.
Exactly. Wow. Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Cool.
Don't do blah blah. Yeah, we hope.
To our panelists this week who have been engaging and educating. Hey, here. My God. I don't know if you guys still do that, but we're done.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Little Einstein Science Fair 2019.
The experience here at Little Einsteins has been very exciting. From the first start when we had come here in 2017, it has really been an experience for me and my friends. So we started off as a small group, just a small group doing some small experiments. We started with how watching TV affects you. Then we moved on to how lemons power light bulbs. And now we're coming on to the big things. The parabolic reflector that is used in many parts around the world. So you see, the experience here at Little Einsteins, it's as if you're gaining experience every other year. As you grow up, Little Einsteins is growing up with you. So Little Einsteins is a very good entrepreneurship goal that is using children, nurturing them to become big things.
Hi kids, how are you? Have you had fun today? I'm just here to say a few words. I think it's amazing that parents have brought their children for such an amazing science fair. And for the children, I want to tell all of you, well done and clap for yourselves. You've done such a good job. I've gone around and seen some of your booths, and I'm very, very proud of you. And whatever happens, I hope you guys all make it really well in the future. Are you going to work very, very hard in school? I'll tell you something. If you work hard in school, you'll have such an amazing future. So work hard, listen to your teachers and your parents, and have fun at the science fair today. I want to thank Guru and everyone from Little Einsteins. Thank you so much for the work you're doing with children, and I just wish everyone a fantastic day. Thank you so much once again. Bye, everyone.
Yes, so what we are doing, we are actually preparing the lungs of the people who smoke and the lungs of the people who don't smoke. And as you can see from our charter, these are our smokers' lungs. And our little demonstration was showing that when we smoke, that's why we were lighting, and then we cover this up to show the smoke. Because this is how actually when you fast clean them, your lungs are covered up in smoke. So it does smoke. Sure.
It's a good idea. Why is it important to make a solar cooker?
Because we use the solar, so we don't have to use charcoal.
Excellent.
And also all of those things that can make a fire.
As you can see, there's a fan on top of the dynamo. So the fan, when the fan spins, it powers up the dynamo. The dynamo can charge the batteries. When the fan spins, it powers up the dynamo, which charges the batteries over here. And when the wind spins this, the fan, when it will power up the lights and charge the batteries. So when they're fully charged, the light will come on. And when the rain comes, it enters inside this tunnel here. It goes down through this pipe. So the reason we put the straw on the top was so that when the tank is full, it transports to the other tank. And here at the back, there is a tiny hole. So that when there is remaining excess water, it pours out to the crops so that we don't waste them. Good problem solving.
Come on. Alright, let's have her now. Let's have her. Let's go. Hey! Hey! Hivi inasema huku. Make some noise! virus has spread. Ask yourself, where was I when I was this young? Hey, 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 hey,
For Kyoto, it was quite an interesting experiment that they had with a lie detector. It shows how science is actually taking the forefront in almost everything that we do. And kids coming to know and to get involved at this early age, it's more beneficial, and they become more competitive, they become more articulate, and we're able to not only see what they're doing, but even as parents, when we get involved, it enables our children learn easier and better.
So amongst us we have, her name is Valentine Joroge, makofi kwake anapokuja. Let's clap for her, Valentine Joroge.
So I've got something here. Who can guess what this is?
It's something from Lego engineering because I've seen it before.
Okay, you're very intelligent and you're very correct. It is. It's a robot, and it's from Lego engineering. And what this robot does is, he's absolutely right, you make it out of Lego. It has sensors in it, it has software in it, and you have to tell your robot what to do. So if you put a robot on the ground and you don't give it any instructions, it does absolutely nothing. But when you give it instructions, then it knows how to behave in the world. And this is what our children are like as parents. We have to give them instructions and we have to teach them about the world. We're here, we're investing in our kids, we're doing little Einsteins, they're learning STEM and science and how the world works. But there's an area that as parents, we are scared to talk to them about, and that is